my mind must just be in the awareness mood, or I don't know. But I stopped and I went to the bathroom. If you listen to the last podcast, when I was talking about why we put things off, I put off going to the bathroom, so I was uncomfortable. So I stopped, just to give a little context. And it's raining. It's been raining for quite some time, so there's water everywhere. And walking to the rest area, I wasn't paying attention, and I stepped in a giant puddle of water. And now my feet are soaked, which is, a minor inconvenience, right? But it made me think about, what are the things that causes us inconveniences in life that we just let it upset us so much that we just lose focus on everything else we're doing, right? So I could be sitting here with 11 hours left in this drive, like, oh, my shoes are soaked, my socks are wet, this sucks, oh my god, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and it just spirals, and I just let myself give this mindset of like, woe is me, the world is all against me, but it's not. And when I got in my truck, obviously started my truck, started going, and it hit me for a second. I was like, God, my feet are wet. This sucks. So I was like, wait a minute. I'm in my truck. I'm dry. And there's this thing that my truck has that's some pretty wild technology. It's called a heater. Whoa. Yeah, hey, I don't know if your truck has one or your car has one, but mine does, so be jealous, right? And it's even so technologically advanced that I can make it just put heat on my feet. And I don't know if you guys know how science works, but typically when you apply heat to something that's wet or got moisture, it typically dries it out. It's crazy how I have the tools to fix something as big of a problem as wet feet is. So obviously there is so much sarcasm in what I just said, but it provides a valid point. We get wrapped up in so much little stuff that doesn't really matter, or we get wrapped up in so much stuff that is easily solved that we would rather sulk in our discomfort. And if someone was probably riding with me, I'd be like, oh, my feet are wet, this is terrible, I want you to drive so I can change my socks, or I need to change my shoes. It's like, we get into this mindset of like, one bad thing happened, world is over, you might as well call it quits, I might as well turn around and go back home. Oh, it's just awful. But in all reality, 99% of our problems are most likely easily solved in a very short period of time. Just like my feet being wet. I would probably venture to say that I have my heater on, I have it directed on the floor, it's gonna dry my feet out, problem solved. In a half hour I'm gonna be probably laughing about this, and hopefully you guys are kind of laughing about the simplicity of this problem. But you really got to think to yourself, what in your life is causing you a recurring problem? And maybe it's not recurring, maybe it's just a simple problem. Because oftentimes, obviously with my wife and my kids, and I work and she works, the kids have extracurricular activities, whether it's my son's cross country, or my daughter's dancing, or it might be swim practice, or it might be a party, or whatever. We kind of like, oh my god, I don't know how I'm gonna make this happen, like I gotta be here, you gotta be there, we gotta do this. Just like actually today, right? So I'm obviously on the road, and I typically come home and I get, I'm home before my daughter gets off the bus. I'm home so I can go pick up my kid after cross-country practice, and everything works out, right? We don't need to worry about before or after care. We don't have to worry about whatever. But because I'm on the road, I'm not going to be able to get my kid from cross-country practice. Seems like a simple problem, but, when you're thinking about a 13-year-old kid, not able to get home by himself, whatever, it's kind of, you can make this into a big problem. Like, oh my God, am I going to take off work early? Am I going to do this? What do I do? I can't take off work early because I don't have leave. It's really simple. And our problem was solved simply by, one, we got a great group of friends. I literally sent a text message, hey brother, I'm on the road. Can you get my son from cross-country practice today and bring him home? And it was literally, I sent that text message. Within seconds, I got back, no problem, bro, I got him. Problem solved, right? So something that could have ended up seemed like a big deal was a minor problem on already because there was a solution, right? Sometimes they're not that simple. Sometimes it's more complicated. I'm trying to think of a situation like that. But, that runs throughout our lives. It probably happens every day where there's some simple problem. And, a lot of my job, both I had, a boss, and then he moved to another position. I got another boss. And both have said that, hey, we think of your position as, they call it like the hatchet man, or if you think about the movie Pulp Fiction, the wolf, the guy you call when you got a problem you can't solve. This guy comes in, he cleans it up, all good to go. Everything just happens, right? So I'm, kind of the role that I'm in now is a hatchet man, and I find solutions to problems that the unit or the organization is facing. And one of the earlier podcasts I hope you guys will listen to on this road trip was, I take a lot of things on my plate, and I've done a bad job, self-admittedly, and been told to my face, which I knew, that I need to task things out and kind of free up some of my time. And by freeing up myself, by kind of tasking some of those things out to other people, it gives me the ability to handle more of those one-off problems that we may be facing. Whether it's, some people are delinquent with something, I take that list, I go direct to them because maybe emails and texts weren't working. I go direct to them like, hey, this is your problem. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you are now. We are aware of it. I want your solution to how you're going to fix the problem. And it kind of forces them to solve their solution or solve their problems. If they need help, obviously we help provide them with solutions through the assets that we possess. But a lot of problems can be solved very quickly with either the help of some friends or some colleagues. It can easily be solved by, sometimes if you just sit down with someone and talk it out. A lot of times that me and my wife have to do is we have one of them scheduling issues kind of in front of us. We sit and we talk, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Well, I can go here, I can do this, you can do this. Hey, I can ask somebody to do this for us. And I can tell you that 100% of the time, the problem has been solved fairly easily. Maybe it's because I've been doing it for such a long time in my profession, is solving those problems as they come up through talking through them or making a plan or kind of figuring out the ins and outs. I'm way more comfortable at taking a problem to the face than maybe my wife is. But her perspective is a little more catastrophizing with it, and it seems like there's no solution, which is great because it helps trigger my brain to start thinking more. So having someone to bounce ideas off of is probably a good thing to have as well. So really, I just want you to think what problems are you having right now? Write them down. Because sometimes, you know, I actually, it's ironic, I just sent a text to a friend. Then in my mind I'd said it to myself and no big deal. But then when I actually text it to him, or, you know, maybe you actually say it to their face, right? It makes it kind of trigger in your brain. You're like, oh, well, that's dumb. I said it out loud now. Like, maybe it triggers something from your brain to your tongue to come out, or your brain to your fingers when you text it. Like, it comes, like, the solution comes to you immediately. So I challenge you to write your problems down. And if that trigger isn't, you know, brought up, and you don't figure out a solution fairly quickly from just writing it down, find your spouse, or your significant other, or a friend or a colleague, and just like, hey, this is my problem. From your perspective, how do I solve this issue? And they could bring something up that you have never thought of that is a simple fix or a simple solution. But you can't get wrapped around the axle, to use a cliche phrase. Can't get wrapped around the axle. Oh, and I'm driving. It's ironic. About small problems being a catastrophe waiting to happen. It was ironic. I was in church the other day, and I wish I'd wrote it down. It was some statistics. I'm going to screw these up, but it's going to be relatively close. It's like 85% of all the things that worry us, 100% of that 85% never actually happens. And then 15% of the things that we thought could go really wrong, that 15%, almost 99% of those actually turn out way easier or less of a catastrophe than we ever thought they would, right? They end up being, oh, well, I thought this was going to happen. It did happen, but it really was a minor detail. It's those 1% tiny fraction of all the weird things that we worry about that actually causes a huge problem. So I challenge you to write your problems down, find the solutions to them, because that not only relieves a lot of stress off your life, it takes a lot of worry away from all your daily stuff, and you can focus on the things that are important. And that's, you kind of keep going back to that, like freeing up your time, getting rid of all your worries, solving simple problems with easy solutions can bring so much more joy and happiness, and actually let you focus on the things that are important to you than if you get wrapped around the axle and you let small problems snowball into something that is just absolutely out of control. So, write your problems down, find the simple solutions, reach out to a friend or colleague or even a spouse, and figure out the way forward so that you can free up your free time and focus on the important stuff.